everyone. Welcome to this live streaming from the digital platforms of the Tribune Network. I'm Rohit Bhan. India and Pakistan have decided to strictly enforce the ceasefire agreement along the line of control in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. This was a decision which was taken after the DGMOs of both the sides spoke to each other, and following which the decision has been taken. I'm joined by my senior colleague Ajay Banerjee, who handles the defense beat for the Tribune. Thank you so much, Ajay, for joining us live from New Delhi. First, tell us why this sudden willingness to talk?
I personally believe that what we learned from the Ministry of Defense is that the DGMOs and their representatives have been talking about this for long, the past couple of weeks. Now, to tell to our viewers, the DGMO and his representatives speak. There is a fixed day per week. Once a week, they speak over the hotline. There is a hotline between Delhi and Rawalpindi. That is the general headquarters of the Pakistan Army. And the DGMOs speak rarely. By the DGMOs, I mean the people who are actually the DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations. There's a Lieutenant General rank officer in India and a Major General rank officer in Pakistan. And they have been talking about this because firing from both sides have been hitting civilian targets on both sides. There have been extensive losses of cattle, of houses, of people's lives, injuries, and all kind of things which can happen in an artillery or a mortar fire from both sides. So this has been going on for long, that please don't target the civilian population, because such a thing does not help. I must tell that this agreement was arrived at on February 22nd. It was made public yesterday on Thursday. But on February 22nd, it was arrived at that we will stop firing across the line of control or the international boundary. There are, to tell our viewers, 749 kilometers of line of control and 198 kilometers of international border in Jammu and Kashmir. And the border is in Jammu and Kashmir, and the LoC spreads from Jammu and Kashmir till Ladakh. So that is the system we have at the moment. But it was not, yes, sudden and public domain, but in the past few weeks, there have been back channel talks about what is to be done. Rohit?
Okay, and also very briefly, Ajay, can you just throw some light on this ceasefire agreement? I believe it came into existence in 2003. What was the agreement like?
Rohit, see, the agreement was that during General Musharraf and Prime Minister Bajpayee's time, General Musharraf had proposed such a ceasefire, because before that, there used to be continuous firing across the LoC through the artillery fire, through tank fire. A lot of things were going on. General Musharraf proposed a ceasefire. India said, okay, don't worry. But this was being followed largely in the breach. I remind the viewers, in May 2018, there was an escalation of firing from both sides, the Pakistan DGMO. Now, in this case, I mean the DGMO of Pakistan Army called up our DGMO, Indian DGMO, and said that we must cease fire. Yes, it was agreed upon. In June and July 2018, the ceasefire violations were very few and far. Now, to give a number, last year in 2020, there were 4,645 ceasefire violations. A ceasefire violation means when either of the side has fired across the LoC or the international boundary and has hit certain targets, civil, military, or whatever. So 4,645 ceasefire violations on the line of control last year in 2020. Now, this agreement means that do not fire across the LoC, as you rightly asked, but it is largely followed in the breach, largely because Indian troops have to cater to stopping infiltration and respond to Pakistan Army's needless, unprovoked firing at Indian civilian targets. I must tell the viewers that the Indian villages are very close to the LoC. Same is case with Pakistan. This is LoC is an artificial line drawn up in 1949, and since then the LoC was earlier called the ceasefire line. It came to be called the LoC in 1972, and after that it's called the LoC. Both the villages on both sides are very close to the LoC, and they often take a hit. People get injured, people get maimed, people lose their properties, their cattle, and everything is lost. So that is the reason for this ceasefire agreement to be done in 2003, and its latest attempt to bring about some kind of normalcy at the LoC. Right.
Also, Ajay, since you mentioned there's been a past track record of these agreements being violated, now what is the guarantee that this time around, also following the DGMO talks, they will strictly enforce this agreement?
Rohit, there can be no guarantee in such things, because I spoke to a few officers yesterday evening. They were very clear and categorical that India has told Pakistan that this does not mean that India will stop its attempts at stopping infiltrators coming into India from the side of Pakistan. Also, it does not mean that Indian Army will stop counterinsurgency and counterterrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir. These two things will carry on. There is no link of stopping cross-border firing and stopping infiltration at the LoC or countering terrorists within the hinterland. So these things are very categorically clear. Also, the Indian side believes that Pakistan will have some sense in not escalating it further because, see, in the past a decade or so, the Indian Army's prowess has improved much more. Just to give an example, the Pakistan Army's budget is less than the Indian Army's pension budget. So imagine the difference between India and Pakistan's budgetary allocation, the firepower and the prowess. So Indian Army believes that Pakistan would realize that it is futile to engage with India along the LoC, rather have a peaceful negotiation and maintain peace for population on both sides of both the countries. However, as you rightly asked, what is the guarantee? There is no guarantee to it, Rohit.
And also, Ajay, there are talks of the trade resuming through the Wagah border, which has been suspended, the trade commerce between the two countries. That apparently some reports emerging that it could resume as far as Wagah border is concerned.
Yes, possibly there is talk of the trade being resumed because, see, especially in North India, Haryana, Punjab, a lot of produce used to be going to Pakistan. Right. Especially edible tomatoes, onions, ginger, garlic, which are in great demand in Pakistan. There is a shortage of tomatoes in Pakistan. The price of tomatoes in Pakistan is almost twice the price in India. Right. So all the tomatoes grown in Himachal Pradesh, or the potatoes grown in Jalandhar in Punjab, or for example, the quinoa being grown in Haryana and Rajasthan, all were largely exported through the Wagah route, which is cheaper, much closer for our farmer. Or even the greens, the daily greens like say spinach or fenugreek or even dhania. So those kind of things were exported through the route, and there were a list of items which were allowed. Now that trade is suspended. It will help, once it is opened, it will help the farmers on our side and also traders on our side much more than what they help in Pakistan. Our side will be more gaining and Pakistan gains in terms of getting good quality produce at cheaper rates. Because as I told you in the program, the rates of tomatoes in Pakistan is double the rate of what tomatoes in India. So tomatoes is ingredient which is used in almost all North Indian dishes. So I'm assuming that Pakistani dishes also use a lot of tomatoes. So tomatoes and potatoes were the other produce which were largely exported from India. And also, very critically, Rohit, the Batti Barotiwala belt near Chandigarh also has 100% export-oriented units. They have been asking for almost a decade now that their produced export-oriented units may be allowed to export directly to Pakistan. At the moment, they go via the sea route from Kandla, which increases the costs. From Badi, you go to Kandla, from the sea route, take a ship, goes to Karachi, and then it goes up to Punjab, to Lahore, Sialkot, wherever, Peshawar or Islamabad. It will be much cheaper by road from Badi, it will reach Lahore in 1 day, and it takes 5 or 6 days from the sea route of Kandla. So if the trade opens, it will be much better for the North Indian farmer, trader, and also the North Indian manufacturer, Rohit.
And also, Ajay, you've been speaking to defense officials and also any officials. Is there a feeling within the administration that the defense personnel need to be very alert on the border? There has been consistent attempt to push in militants, terrorists from across the border. So under guise of this ceasefire agreement, is there a sense that there could be an attempt to push in, infiltrate militants?
Well, the Indian Army is very, very clear that the ceasefire agreement to not to fire across the LoC does not apply to its attempts to stop infiltration at the LoC. The anti-infiltration it's called the anti-infiltration grid. It runs all along from the west of Zojila Pass right up to Kathua and down to Madhapur in Punjab. Madhapur is the border between Jammu and Punjab, and right runs from west of Zojila to right up to down below. So that's a huge kilometer. To explain in kilometers, it will be something like 740, 750 kilometers. Now that grid remains intact. There is nothing to stop it. If there is somebody attempting to come in, he or she will be dealt very, very sternly as they were being dealt before this announcement of the ceasefire at the LoC and at the international boundary. There'll be no let up in that. The Indian Army is very, very clear. We are not going to dismantle the anti-infiltration grid or the counterinsurgency and the counter-terrorism grid in the valley. Rohit.
Well, Ajay, thank you so much for these useful insights as you've been providing, not just from the LoC, also providing those insights from the LAC, where India and China are in some sort of a deadlock. You've been providing those beautiful insights, and now from the line of control, where the DGMOs, as Ajay mentioned, have spoken, and they've decided that they will strictly enforce the ceasefire agreement. It remains to be seen to what extent Pakistan sticks to the letter and spirit of those ceasefire agreement. But as Ajay mentioned, it has nothing to do with the anti-infiltration grid that will continue to remain in place, and the security forces will continue their vigil on the sensitive line of control. We'll provide you all the updates on not just the defense-related stories, but also other news and updates will continue on our website, tribuneindia.com. You can also log on to our website and also follow us on our other social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Meanwhile, thanks for watching.